As I've gotten to know Trent and gotten to know more about his story, Trent is someone who has dealt with a lot of different kinds of suffering in his life. I wanted to give you an opportunity to hear more about Trent's story. Trent, you can go ahead and begin to make your way up here. He has been texting me and saying, man, the enemy does not want me to share what I'm going to share this morning, because he has been attacking me left and right.
My story really began a long time before that, and part of it I'm going to, if I catch my breath for a second, it's because I've actually not spoken about it publicly for 38 years. So I do want to make sure, since at some point I know that this will get out publicly, that I was blessed to have an amazing family growing up. I have two of the very best parents that God could gift a child. Just beautiful people. My mother is still around, but as children, are involved in certain activities and things like that, sometimes you encounter people that may or may not have the best intentions towards children, and that happened to me. New ones are being built, but it took 6 months to get them approved because they're $400,000.
Jeez. How old are you guys?
6.
6?
6.
Both 6, huh?
He's turning 7.
Oh.
How we got to this point in my life, or okay. I'm Trent Fielder, in Burleson, Texas. I was paralyzed a little over 6 years ago by a neuromuscular autoimmune condition, and reaching a point where I think I'm on the winning side. In December 16th, 2011, I was a new parent. I had 7-month-old twins, and I'd been working a lot and was about ready for a Christmas vacation, but I started having some symptoms or some problems that were foreign to me. I had trouble holding my cell phone. It would drop out of my hands. I had trouble negotiating the brake and gas pedals in my car. Again, I just thought I was tired, but my wife disagreed. She contacted my doctor, who had me go in for a CT exam the next morning. So they decided to put me on the table to get everything started, and after about 35, 40 minutes, they said, okay, well, it's okay to get up and leave, and I couldn't. And one of the neurologists that came in and asked me, he said, have you ever heard of Guillain-Barré? And I wasn't trying to be sarcastic or funny. I just asked him if that was another doctor in the hospital. So he knew at that point that there was going to be some education that needed to be done. A few months later, actually in October, I got worse again. And that's when they diagnosed me with what was at the time a progressive form of the ultimate Scrabble word, chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, CIDP for short. So I had surgery to try to help with some of the pain, and that surgery went very bad. I ended up having an embolism, and I had one. My father had died from one just 2 years previous to that, and I had one at home. I had a full breath in. I was just laying in my bed. It was time to go to bed, and my wife wasn't even in the room at the time. But I breathed all the way in, and then I distinctly felt and heard this deep but calming voice of "not yet." So I held my breath, but with calmly letting a little bit out at a time for over 2 minutes for the ambulance to be able to get to the house. But it was such an amazing experience to know that, to see the world through one breath. I saw light differently. The lamp light that was in the bedroom, how it reflected off picture frames, or how it reflected throughout the room, how everything slowed down. How my wife, as she walked in, I saw my wife, she's already beautiful enough on her own without me, but I saw her in this gasp kind of moment of realization that, wow, these gifts that we're giving in life are real, and they really are God-given.
People are like, "You're so strong," and I was like, well, if I'm not laughing, I'm crying, so I might as well make the best out of it. And he's been able to be home with the kids, and it's kind of weird because it's like the roles are reversed, because usually it's like the man going out and making the money, and then the wife is at home and things like that. Yes, baby. We can watch Lost in Space in a little bit, baby.
But then finally, after months of trying, years of trying to figure out a way to walk, we decided to go with a long shot idea of using basically random pieces of equipment or random pieces of things that we could find, because even though I don't have the nerve sensation below the waist and down, I have the ability to generate vibration. So when you make a heel strike, there's something that generates it. It's really diminished when it gets to my hips, but there had to be a way, we had to be able to figure out a way where, how do you increase that sense of the vibration so that I know where my legs are in space? And it's like echolocation through your legs, where as soon as the heel hits the ground, then that pressure and that vibration will generate from basically the ankles to the knees to the hips, to where I then know where my legs are. And that, unconventional way of looking at things, which is what ATF is all about, and the support of the team, after 5 years, 10 months, 25 days, and 5.5 hours, I took my first steps on my own.
We'll literally kill him.
That's all right. This is the Trent I know right here.
Holy shit.
Yes, guys.
Yes,
Trent. Yeah. Look at this.
I'm gonna kill
Yes.
him.
That's the Trent I know.
No, come on, Trent.
That's the Trent I know.
This side. There you go.
Literally going
Trent.
to kill him.
Trent, you're doing this, my man. You're doing this. You're doing this.
What the hell?
Hey! Yes! Hey! Just let me know the
I've been blessed with some amazing people and medical professionals that are huge support through this. But when it became time to graduate from ATF, one of the first things they ask you is, what do you want to do next? It's the redeploy part of it, is where do you want to go with what you've accomplished and, the goals. And my first response was my gut response, and that was, I want to do an Ironman. And I can remember distinctly the raised eyebrows that went through there, because, how did somebody go from where I was and still have the disability, still have the struggle with the lungs and the pain, and how does somebody do something like that? And you do it the same way in my mind and heart. You do it the same way that you did it with walking. You do it unconventionally. One of the things that I was absolutely blessed with through ATF was the opportunity to spend time with some amazing servicemen and women, veterans that had given everything, had given their lives for this country and for us. And to spend time with them on a day in and day out basis, hear their stories and hear their struggles, it helped solidify the idea of I know why I'm in a race, and I know who I'm going to race for, because it's not for me. I don't typically feel a calling to punish myself. I wanted to race for those that maybe have lost their hope. There's an organization that's called 22 Kill that represents our veterans that have taken their lives. Most people don't know or have not been made aware that every day 22 veterans kill themselves. They take their own lives. They've suffered traumatic injuries. They've, whether physical, the unseen injuries, the emotional trauma of what they've been through. So how do you give hope back to them? How do you show them that they're the best of what this country and this world is? And how do we do that? And one of the first ways that you can do that is making sure people know. I mean, the people that I've talked to and the speeches that I've given about 22 Kill, the first thing that comes when I mention that there are 22 that die each day is a gasp. And that gasp is awareness. It's the realization that the message needs to be stronger and get out there. And I think one of the ways that I'll be able to do that is racing for them. You know, the thing about being the first of its kind is you set a trend for hope for others. And that's what people need. They need to understand that hope doesn't exist in this kind of confine. It's not this random, unachievable thing. It's in your heart. It's your spirit. It's what within you will allow you to inspire others by showing them who you really are and showing others that the spirit is the most important part of us. The spirit has the ability to heal the body. It doesn't work in reverse.
You being submissive?
Oh yeah, you gotten jealous? You're getting jealous?
Are you being submissive? Are you being submissive? Who's submissive? Huh? Who's a 135-pound tank of submissiveness?
But he was walking and he was doing his thing, and then he was coming back, and then all of a sudden he dropped his crutches, and I was like, and I'm recording him because he wants me to like show him how he was walking, and then all of a sudden he drops one crutch and he drops the other crutch, and I was just like, what? And then I couldn't believe it, and like tears started coming down my eyes, and it was just tears of joy. And it was funny because the kids were just running around having fun, doing their thing, and they were just, you know, daddy in a wheelchair or daddy walking is just daddy. It really just, they were just like, oh, okay, you know, and then just went along their merry way. Nah. Nobody, you want to help daddy with that box?
I guess back to the parts that I struggled with as a husband and father was because I let this whole experience almost cost me my marriage, and I failed my wife, I failed my kids. We were within 8 hours of filing for divorce, and it was my son who he crawled into the bed, and it was completely unprompted. It just didn't. I mean, he was 4 at the time, and he just asked Nicole and I, what makes a family? And so we went from preparing ourselves for the next stage of a life without each other to having a 4-year-old give us a reality check, but one that opened our hearts, that the most important thing we can have is a family, and the most important thing we are is a family, and that starts obviously inside the home,
But that family it's our church, it's our community, it's our country, it's the world. But if we can't find a way to bridge the gaps and take that negativity and look inward and say, okay, I feel this in a negative way, maybe it's how I'm looking at it and my perspective. That's the problem, not everybody else.
I really believe in my heart that there's not a single person in here that I can't identify with and that can't identify with me, because that suffering it's more universal than we give it credit for. So, and I think we do that to, I think part of that is the guilt and shame, but the other part is the fear that somebody is going to judge us because of what we've been through. And we look for ways to isolate ourselves from suffering instead of do what God really intended for us, and that is the fellowship. And we talked a little bit about that. The fellowship is what brings us and can help bring us through the most difficult parts of suffering. But my story really began a long time before that, and part of it I'm going to, if I catch my breath for a second, it's because I've actually not spoken about it publicly for 38 years. You know, as children, you know, are involved in certain activities and things like that, sometimes you encounter people that may or may not have the best intentions towards children. And that happened to me. Just got to get it out. Okay. I was molested as a kid. It would happen over the course of a few years with a few different individuals. They were nowhere near the family circle, I guess, per se, so they were far outside of that. I had lived happily, leaving it where it was, but recently when I went through this rehabilitation program, they asked you to accept the program fully and embrace and surrender fully. So I did, and it kept coming. As a child, I think in the beginning I was just very confused. I didn't understand I knew that there was something that was not right about it. I went through life dealing with an incredible amount of anxiety and trying to work my way through that. But I'd found, I think, a moment of peace, or a time of peace in my life. I was fresh out of college and had a job. Sorry, I'm getting a little...
You're good.
But at 23, the woman that I loved, and we had just started out our life together, she had a car accident. She was able to come away from the car accident and with a concussion, but she started acting strangely, and then 12 days later, she actually killed herself, and she did it in front of me. My clearest memory of right after Sarah died was the first time that I took a shower, and I took a shower and washed the blood off, and as it went down that drain, I remember truly realizing, or at least in my mind saying, that I deserved all of this. I deserved everything that had happened to me to that point, and so this person that I was becoming, had to accept suffering as guilt and as shame, as I think a lot of us do. You know, we internalize it. It's a lot easier to internalize than certainly to reach out to other people. Grief and suffering is a journey. It's a journey for all of us. I think what's unfortunate sometimes is that we look at our suffering as very individualistic, as something that we can't share with other people, when in fact suffering, the circumstances may be different, but the same feelings that I have about suffering and the same fears and experiences are ones that we all share.
You have this picture in your head about what life is going to look like, what it's going to be, what we're going to do, what we're going to be able to do, and just then, you know, all this happens. We're like the Murphy's Law family, I would say, like, what's going to happen next? Just please pile on all the garbage that you can possibly give us, and so that we could just all deal with it at once. I guess it's been a humbling thing, because we've been in positions where we have to rely on other people for help, and it's hard to ask for help, and it's you know, because you want to be strong, and you think that, you know, but we're designed to rely on one another, you know, especially when the kids were little and he first got sick. You know, we had preemie twins, and, you know, my husband's paralyzed, and it's like, oh my goodness, what is happening? You know, the ladies from church basically became additional grandmas, helping, you know, just clean the house, watch the kids for a second, make meals. And, you know, the biggest thing was just, I remember just being so overjoyed the fact that my kitchen sink was clean. It's like the little things. But just being humbled and actually having to rely on somebody, and then that makes me more willing to be able to go out and help somebody else, even if they can't ask for it themselves, maybe because they're too embarrassed or don't think that they need it. You know, Trent, he has to encourage me 1,000 times. He's like, just ask for help. Like, you need it, ask for help. And I was like, I don't like doing that. So.
The two biggest hurdles that I face are the financial piece of it, because the equipment, it's different. I don't have regular legs to run with, but the equipment needs that I have, the training that I need. The other is navigating the illness. So financially, it's the equipment, but it's also the treatments, because I can't stop getting the treatments, and the cost is the cost of the insurance alone. We can only really do it for a short period longer. Trying to navigate the treatments along with the training, so it's a moving target, just like it is, I'm sure, for a lot of other athletes. I'm hopeful that just no matter where the target moves, that I'll have enough people behind me and supporting me that'll see me through it. Like, this is a calling to do something that I've never done before for the right reasons, and those reasons aren't me. And I know that God is working through a lot of people's lives, and He's working through me to give a message. And I'm up to the task.
So, Trent, thank you so much for sharing with us this morning.
Thanks for letting me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I may not know much, but I know this.
Hey guys, Cameron Smith here, creator of the Teardrop Project. Thanks for checking out this episode. It's very special, and Trent is a wonderful guy, so if you can, share this video, support him. He occasionally has fundraisers going on, so please donate to those things and support everything that you can that Trent is involved with. Let's help him get the help and equipment that he deserves. And if you're interested in the Teardrop Project, we have a lot of episodes. Please check us out on Facebook. And if you want a lot of extra behind the scenes things, check us out on patreon.com/Teardrop Project for as little as $1 a month. You can become a patron, help us keep making and telling important stories, and all the while getting some really cool little bonus rewards. So thanks guys.